En France, le gouvernement a présenté le 28 avril devant l'Assemblée nationale son projet de déconfinement progressif de la population à partir du 11 mai. Certains pays ont déjà passé le pas et commencé à assouplir les restrictions. C'est le cas de la Chine, où a commencé la pandémie de Covid-19, du Ghana, premier pays d'Afrique à avoir levé le confinement, ou encore du Danemark, où certains élèves sont déjà de retour à l'école. Nous avons contacté des journalistes qui vivent et travaillent sur place. Ils racontent la transition délicate en cours dans ces trois pays.
After 6 weeks of lockdown, 1.5 weeks ago, we started the reopening of the Danish society. And in the beginning, the reopening was kindergartens and all kind of children institutions from nursing homes and the smallest classes in school until the 5th grade in Denmark. So they were able to come back to school and kindergarten if they were fulfilling certain restrictions with a lot of hand washing. There had to be more space in classrooms. A lot of the Danish children are now a lot more outside of the classroom than normally, and they're divided into groups. Last Monday, we reopened hairdressers and tattooing shop and stuff like that. Bars and restaurants, not at this stage.
I know that this lockdown that was let up in Wuhan, it was sort of publicized as a very big deal because of how long the city was essentially closed and people were stuck inside their houses. I think the Chinese government definitely did push the message that the city is opening, the lockdown is getting let up, but there are still, from my understanding, measures in place that are not fully let up. It's going to be more gradual than just this immediate end of a lockdown because of how everything is going in China. Certainly there was sort of a propaganda push.
That lockdown lasted 3 weeks. It was initially 2 weeks and then it was extended. When the lockdown was lifted a week and a half ago, I guess, it was surprising. I spoke to a public health expert who had said it was a bit premature. But I think also Ghana is a completely different context to European or American countries. There was a lot more things to weigh up here because a big part of the economy in Ghana is like informal workers. So people who are literally like going out to earn a daily wage. That was a big aspect to that decision, as well as the fact that Ghana has done what they call like aggressive testing and tracing of cases.
Wuhan went under lockdown on end of January. And after that in Beijing, it wasn't immediate, I would say. There started to be measures put in place in neighborhoods. At the entrance of a community, there would be like a guard or a community volunteer who would take your temperature. And then to get into the neighborhood, you had to show a residence sort of permit. It's, I guess, a way to make sure that nobody from outside of the communities is coming in. That started beginning of February, and that's been in place since. My neighborhood still has that. Actually, most do. It's relaxed a bit. Like you can now, in some places, bring in visitors. You just have to register them, but still temperature checks, like basically everywhere you go, even to the 7-Eleven to get a coffee or everywhere. And then a lot of places you'd have to write down your phone number and your identity card number. And then also now it's increasingly used this QR system. So you have to scan a QR code when you go into a lot of buildings.
From the moment Ghana had its first cases of COVID-19, that was the 12th of March. So that was significantly after a lot of like European countries. They did quickly. I think it was on the 15th. That was the announcement that they would be closing borders to countries where there were more than 200 cases. And then on the 15th itself, they also announced closure of schools and then bans on public gatherings. So in quite a short time span, I think a lot of action was taken. And it was Accra, where I am, Kasua, which is close to Accra, Kumasi, which is another big city, and Obuasi as well, I think. So it wasn't the whole country that was locked down. It was just places that were like considered hotspots. I was also in lockdown, so I didn't really go around, but like going to the supermarket, which is just up the road a few times, and just seeing outside my own window, very quiet, like where I am at the moment. It's usually like a really lively, noisy street. When I record audio here, I have to wait like till later on in the night because it is so noisy in the daytime.
We had a really early lockdown in Denmark. On the 11th of March, the Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, announced a lockdown in Denmark. At that time, we only had the beginning of society spread of virus. And the reason we are able to make a reopening is because the virus spread is so low at the moment. When the Danish government shut down the Danish society, we had a virus spread of 2.6. So one with the coronavirus was spreading 2.6 in average. And when we started the reopening, we had a 0.6 spread. And when you're below 1.0, the epidemic will slowly disappear.
There have been measures put in place. So it's mandatory now to wear a face mask if you're going around in public spaces, at least in Accra. The borders are still closed. The ban on public gathering has been extended for another 2 weeks. Social distancing rules are still in place. It's made it very difficult for a lot of people. So there have been some initiatives, like there has been some good charitable outreach, food drives, and people, like even the government going around and handing out food, but there has been a lot said that not everyone is getting the resources that they need basically to survive. So I think there will be pretty big consequences going forward for a lot of people.
People would really love to have their normal life back. And especially among the youngsters, you see now the spring is coming, the temperature is rising, the sun is here. And here in Copenhagen, we had some really nice days. And we saw a lot of people were gathering. And even though we have a band of more than 10 people gathering, now some certain areas in Copenhagen, we were told that you are not allowed to sit on a bench in that area. You're only allowed to walk or run.
I definitely don't think it's normal. There's still measures in place in most places, but I do think that after basically 2 months of people being inside, there was this very big need for people to get out. So I remember when the parks started opening, there was a lot of people going outside, dressed up like very fashionable, but this second wave situation is still a problem here and in different parts of China. There have been infections recently. The quarantine measures and the measures to prevent this second wave are so strict because of how afraid the Chinese government is of this second wave. I think it's going to still be a while before things can be called normal.